All right.
Hmm.
So, Ian, thanks so much for coming on board today. I am so passionate about small businesses, local businesses, hearing what they're doing right now, and in general, just a little bit about the businesses themselves, giving you guys a voice, and hopefully you'll have something fun to say. And so yes, I have Ian, co-owner of Actis Projects today. Ian was a carpenter builder since 2002. That's 18 years, lots of experience. Actis is BBB A plus rating accredited, so I love that. I know I'm always interested in those businesses just to make sure that you get somebody good working with you. Actis Projects now is in the 11th year of business, specializes in new builds, large renovations, and they excel at unique projects that require out-of-the-box thinking. So that's really interesting, and I really want to kind of expand on that. What do you mean out of the box? Tell me more about Actis. What does Actis mean? And go.
Yeah, sounds great. Well, hey, that was a great introduction. Thanks for having me. That's you basically said all the things I would say in my introduction. That's good. I should write that down.
There you go. Put
Um,
that on your website.
yeah, so I'll start with a little bit about Actis. Yeah, so we started that about 11 years ago. Just starting in sort of the west of Vancouver, working on a number of jobs. Most of our experience was through what we call like major renovations, starting from 3-story additions. Um, and yeah, mostly additions and things like that. That actually gave me a really good experience throughout the building process and in all steps of the building process. A lot of other carpenters, if you just start in one sector, either like framing or finishing or concrete work, you might only know that portion of the build and
Mm-hmm.
not really be aware of, excuse me, the other trades that are involved in a project. So it gave me a really good perspective on the whole project, start to finish. And yeah, we've been doing that ever since, and building larger and larger projects. Getting into new builds about 4 or 5 years ago. We have our warranty, of course, 2510.
Mm-hmm.
Homes warranted with a Pacific Home Warranty.
Can you touch
Um,
on the warranty? What does that mean?
yeah,
2010. I know it's different for everybody. Just kind of want to touch a little bit on that. What does that usually mean for builders?
yeah. So it's actually you really have no choice. It's determined by the BC government for the BC Housing Organization. So it used to be called the HPO. Now it's just called BC Housing. It's your builder's certification. And so what they mean by 2510 is you have 2 years on mechanical systems. So the warranty on mechanical systems, that'd be your HVAC, your boiler, those sorts of things. Uh, those systems also have their own independent warranties, and your plumbers will have their own things on top of that. But as the builder, such as myself, yeah, it's a 2-year warranty on that. And then there's 5 years on the building envelope. Um, which we all know, if we were alive in the 2000s, the leaky condo crisis was a severe, severe issue. So the government's been really active in making sure that building standards are a lot better than they used to be to protect owners. Um, and then the 10 is for structural things. So never had an issue with that. Foundations,
Foundation
yeah,
and so forth. Okay.
settling, that geotechnical stuff. So the theory behind those numbers are they've run stats on all these things, and if a problem is going to develop in any one of those areas, mechanical, envelope, or structural, they'll definitely manifest within that period of time.
Okay.
Um, and then yeah, we never have any problems with our builds, but
Great, great.
um,
And you mentioned, I just kind of want to go back to unique projects,
yeah, yeah.
because we've spoken before, and you've mentioned lifts and heritage work, heritage homes. I'd love to touch on that because it's such a unique
Hmm.
specialty. Not a lot of people do that. And I know in New Westminster, Vancouver, there's a lot of heritage properties. There's a
Yeah,
lot of smaller homes where you might require a lift. So you can still purchase something that's maybe a little bit too small, but you could do something with that property, or a heritage property.
right.
I know a lot of people will shy away from that because maybe they don't have enough information. Can we go into that a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so heritage houses are great. I like the history of the houses. But as a buyer or as someone looking to renovate, a heritage house can get you some advantages with your municipality, because if you don't destroy it and throw it into the garbage, which is something they're trying to dissuade people from doing. They will give you more FSR, you'll give you more square footage on their property compared to a new build, and try to encourage you to keep it for those reasons. There'd be some extreme cases where actually the building is so, if they deem it historically valuable enough, like you won't even have the option to throw it out, but that's pretty rare. Like you would, yeah, be a pretty rare property for that. But most people, I know heavily here in Kitsilano and in New Westminster, some of the houses are, are pretty, from the exterior, they're nice looking. They have character elements, and the inside has gone through, 100 years of patchwork renovation. So the inside is a tear down. But the outside elements are worth keeping. And so a number of jobs we've done would involve the lift, because you basically need to make a new foundation, both for longevity and it'll, typically that's how you get more square footage for a house. Like a lot of these smaller bungalows are really cool, but they're small, right? And people are looking for more space. Most people include a suite or two into their properties to help them with the mortgage. That's pretty typical, duplex, triplex, sorts of things. So we're almost always lifting the house, which definitely the first few I worked on, it was kind of a little daunting and a little scary. First of all, you got the house like above you, just on what I call the Jenga piles of wood. They're called cribs, but once you've done a couple of them, it's actually fairly simple. And I don't want, I don't want to minimize my expertise per se, but it's actually, as a owner, I would tell people that it's not a scary proposition. It's really quite simple for any experienced builder who's done them a number of times. It's pretty straightforward.
And you guys, I guess, create the plans and work with the owner from start to finish on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Occasionally we'll get owners that come to us and they already have plans drawn by architects. And then other times they come to us sort of at project inception, and then we work with builders, architects from the get-go. That's actually my preferred method, mostly because we have a lot of experience, obviously, in building, and designers have a lot of experience in designing. But it really works best for the project when it's a collaborative effort, because there's things we can do for the design to keep a lid on the budget or achieve your goals through different means. But the process really requires all people involved, I think, on equal footing, because the designers need to be thinking of the artistic concepts and like the feel of the space, and we are there to figure out the best way to bring that vision to life. And of course the vision comes from the client, who's giving the criteria for what the project success would be like.
Awesome. And what if somebody wanted to do a brand new build? What's the timeline? I think that's the big one, right? What is the timeline, and how accurate is that timeline? Like, you can give a client a timeline. Can you hold up to that, or what can go wrong during that timeline? So that's kind of what I want to know is what am I looking for if a buyer purchases an old house, wants to tear it down, or a piece of property and wants to build on it? What are we looking at?
Yeah, this will be in general terms, obviously, depending on municipality and what is being designed. But I would say that the design process would be probably 3 months, 3 or 4 months easily for the design. That's adequate. It can go up from there, it could go down from there, but I would say 3 to 4 months for the design is probably about right. And then permits would be another probably 3 or 4 months, depending on
the city.
jurisdictions.
Yeah.
So now let's say now you're up to 7 months, and then the build, depending, if we were saying it's a 3,500 square foot house, the build I would target 11 months. And again, it could be shorter and it could be longer, of course. The sky's the limit, as they say. But so it's closing in on 2 years from purchase of property if you were to start the design process cold turkey at that point.
Okay.
Which is a long time.
It can be, but it's good
Yeah.
to know that. So if you are thinking about purchasing a chunk of property and building on it. It's knowing that
Yeah.
timeline. It's like, well, where do I live in the meantime? What am I going to be doing? How much time do I invest in this? And so forth. And I'm assuming you work really close with the owners, if they're owner
Oh
builders,
yeah.
and just figuring out, just making sure every step of the way is worked out with them. So 2 years, that is a long time, but you get the home that you want, right?
Yeah.
You get the dream
And
home.
yeah, and you'd be living in your house there for the first year, right? So
Yeah, at
um,
least.
as you think about things, yeah.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
so awesome. And tell me a little bit about your crew. I know you have a really, really solid group of people working with you, and you guys pride yourself on education and growth. I really want to touch on that. I think that's really important.
Yeah, so we got a great team of guys who've been with us. One of our guys has been with us for 5 years. He's our key site super individual. He form and frame anything, and he's one of the hardest workers I've ever met in my life. It's hard to keep up with, actually. And then we have a bunch of younger guys, younger, sort of like 30s. Got to check myself these days. Um, yeah, a lot of them are Red Seals, which is this carpentry certification for being qualified in the industry. Um, and they have really prioritized education with them. So we pay for education. They submit, hey, I want to go check out this night class, or even if they're going through carpentry school, we'll pay for that because it's important to learn your craft and learn all aspects of building, as well as I mean, these days with YouTube and Instagram, it's really easy just to pick up little tips and tricks here and there for doing things better, as well as larger issues such as like building envelope and energy efficiency, which is becoming more and more important these days. And there's a number of YouTube personalities that are actually quite put out good content. I'd say it would rival most because it rivals some schooling because it's so up to date.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's hot off the presses. And yeah, so I really encourage that type of behavior, and it's great when I show up to site and they say, "Hey, Ian, did you see that new video from such and such?" I'm like, "Oh, I did." Like, isn't that nuts? We should try and do that.
I
Or
love
sometimes
that.
we see a technique and we're like, "Ah, that's useless," but that's all part of shop talk, which we
I
enjoy.
love that. And I love that you're investing in your people.
Hmm.
And that's it's beyond amazing, and it's so important. If they grow, you grow as a company. You guys get better as a company. And so that's really awesome. The other thing I wanted to ask you, because I truly don't know much about this, I've heard something about passive housing or passive house.
Yep.
Tell me more about that, because I don't know.
Right. Yeah. So there's been a number of energy efficiency models and criteria that have been around for many years, but the passive house one is really popular these days and has been adopted actually by like the BC government as what the new standard is going to be. So for people who maybe don't know, I believe it's 12 years from now, every house being built in BC will have to be a passive house.
Interesting.
And so what they brought on this process called the step code, where somewhere between where we are now in terms of efficiency and where we are going to be in 12 years for this passive house standard, which I'll explain in a second, there's a series of steps that will 1 through 5 to get there. And so different municipalities right now they're going up the step code in process. So like a common question between designers and builders be like, oh, like what step code is this municipality at? Are they at 3? Are they at 4? I'm like, oh, I hear it's coming down soon.
Mm-hmm.
But the upshot with all this is that passive house is a energy standard from Austria. But actually, they got the inspiration from Canadians. There's a Canadian tie-in,
Oh.
which is kind of exciting. We were at the forefront of this in the 70s. And I don't know, slept on it for a while. Now we're back at it actually, especially BC. So passive house, the other criteria have been fairly complicated, and a passive house tries to simplify it all. And it just says that for a given size of house in a given climate, because it's climate specific, that a certain amount of energy is like your max amount of energy needed to heat and cool that house for an entire year and for all of its services. So like all the energy being used by this house in a year in this climate, like here's your maximum amount of energy that you can use. And then they just leave the design completely up to the architects, designers, and builders. They're like, you just figure out how to make that energy model work.
Mm-hmm.
And there's the energy modeling is extremely complicated, and like what you do to achieve that can get really complex. But there's a lot of specific things that people have tried and true methods that are becoming standard, but that's not in the passive house criteria. They just tell you this amount of energy for the year, like you figure it out.
So
And
what
so
do
it's
you
really
mean?
exciting.
What do you mean energy? Is it the like energy in terms of like gas, electricity? Like
Yes.
what are we?
Yes.
Okay, so
Yeah.
like
So
to
they,
heat your home. So we're talking windows, we're talking furnace, we're talking all of these
yeah.
things that they have to create and I guess an idea of what they're going to be using in order to make that home
Yeah,
energy
exactly.
effective.
So it's measured in kilowatts. And so, yeah, you need high efficiency boilers. You need really thick windows. Typically you need overhangs to prevent the sun from heating up your house only in the summer, because then in the winter you do want the sun to heat up your house. So
Okay.
like there's architects will have models about where the sun is, and like, in July your house is getting shade, but then in like December the sun can come in through the windows.
Oh,
So there's lots of
interesting.
interesting things like that, but it's all about about reducing CO2 emissions, of course.
Okay. No, that's awesome. Thank you for touching on that because I really had no clue about
No
that.
worries. Yeah,
There was some
it's a
talks.
it's relatively new, and we have my business partner is Passive House certified, and I've built about 4 of them.
Hmm.
Um, and it is a little bit of a premium for clients to go for that standard. But between Passive House and Step 0, you can build what a lot of builders are calling high performance houses, which adopt a lot of the same principles. Um, but if you don't go for certification, you can get many of the benefits without the added expense.
Hmm.
Um, so we do that for a lot of our homeowners as well, who aren't concerned about having things labeled as a passive house, but do
Yeah.
know that it's more efficient than the other houses on the block.
And I love that. And that goes into so many different things because it's important to bring down your costs on heat and of course for the environment and
Mm-hmm.
a lot of different things. So it does help us out in the long run, if
Yeah,
you want the label or not.
for sure.
So I love that. And I love that you guys are headed in that direction. I think that's really important for many reasons.
Yeah.
And yeah, just to kind of end on a positive note, I wanted to ask you 3 things that you're grateful for right now.
Oh, 3 things that I'm grateful
Surprise.
for. Okay, cool. I am grateful that this is such a great city to go outside and go for runs or bike rides and get active. I mean, I don't know if you guys have seen parks and trails around where everyone, I mean, there's chock full of people getting out there. Very thankful for that. Thankful for modern technology. So you can actually like meet people. Of course, I've had like, as everyone has, I've probably had 3 or 4 birthday dinners with people in the family via Zoom. Like my friends meet on Friday on Zoom. So that's really great. That's, 30 years ago, it wouldn't have been the same for sure. And yeah, I'm thankful for my wife who puts up with me.
Aw, that's sweet. Did you bike to work?
No, I'm at home.
Oh, you are at home.
Uh,
Okay, home office.
but yeah, home office this morning. Yeah.
Yeah, so awesome, awesome. Well, Ian, thank you so much for being on here. I hope that everyone got some tidbits and learned
Yeah,
something
hopefully.
today. And thanks for speaking to that. It's always nice to have some professionals on here. And I'm learning every day. So I love that. And thanks again. I'm going to have your contact information at the bottom of YouTube. And also, if everybody can subscribe, that would be great. I have more awesome, awesome businesses on here with tidbits and stuff that we can learn from them. So yeah, and Ian, thank you so much for being on here. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's been fun.
All right. Okay, well, have a great day.
You too. Cheers.